now a season worst 7 games under 500 after getting swept by the Cleveland Guardians. Welcome to episode number 15 of the Queen's Connection, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, and joined as always by the co-host, Mr. Corne Hogeveen. Corne, how are you after another series prediction from you that just went right down the drain?
Yes, maybe should stop being positive about this club now. Um, tough match length. It's tough overall. I have vacation right now. The London series coming up, so a nice little 3 weeks off from work. Um, so yeah, that's obviously something I look forward to. But the Mets, not so much right now. Not they don't bring me a lot of joy right now. Probably with you, it's the same.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate that as the baseball season is going along, I think the season is starting to dictate itself, and that's something we'll probably get into in this episode. As the Mets are currently, like I said, 7 games under 500, the worst mark of the season. They are 21 and 28, fourth place in the National League East, and how we got there was, well, I guess we got to start back on Monday in Cleveland at the weird 6:10 start times that we both kind of agreed not not entirely big fans of because now after the game ends, we're just kind of like, well, we still got some time to kill. It's not time for me to go to bed, and you still got a lot of work to do at your night shifts. So, and that was especially the case on Monday night because that was a quick ball game that was started by Tyler McGill for the New York Mets, who made his return from the IL. Uh, got 2 quick outs, and then things kind of snowballed on him in that first inning. Cleveland put up a 2 spot, and the Mets were able to respond. They chipped away on a Tomas Nido home run in the third to make it 2-1. Cleveland quickly got that run back in the fourth inning, and nothing much happened else with the bats in this series. The Mets or in this game, I should say, the Mets had a couple chances, particularly later in the game against a Cleveland bullpen that has been very good this year. So you thought maybe this was the day that the bullpen was going to crack for Cleveland. It did not. So the Mets were not able to generate anything besides the Nido home run, so they lose the opener of the series 3-1. I think a couple takeaways from this game. We'll start with Tyler McGill first. His first start since March, when that started against the Milwaukee Brewers. He finishes the day 5 innings, 4 runs, 3 hits, only 2 were earned, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Your thoughts on Tyler McGill in his first game back in the big leagues in a couple months?
I thought he looked pretty solid. We saw the splitter, which is obviously a new pitch for him, and it's noted. You see that it's a new pitch for him, but I think he does have something there. So um, obviously he needs to refine it a little bit. His control on that splitter isn't pinpoint yet, but he did have some very good splitters in his outing. So um, I think that was the main point I saw from Tyler McGill. Him having that extra pitch, which he obviously can use. Um, because yeah, I always see Tyler McGill and what he has done with the match, glimpses of being very good, but overall mediocre. So him adding a pitch that was good. Um, Hitters swung over it. A splitter, we see what it's is doing with Reed Garrett, a good splitter. So if McGill can refine that or at least make it a little bit less inconsistent, I think he has a true extra pitch there. And I think for me, that was the main point I saw in his outing. Um, actually was pretty excited after watching Tyler McGill. Probably after that April start in 2022, where he pitched really well early on. This is the first time my excitement returned for Tyler McGill. So promising, that's the word I would give it for Tyler McGill.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that. I like the way he threw the ball. Like you said, his splitter, American sport, whatever he's calling it. Um, it's still a pitch he's developing, so you can see that at times. Uh, but it has some potential. We know he's got the high velocity fastball, so a fastball splitter combo potentially down the line for McGill would be interesting to see. Um, yeah, overall I thought he threw the ball well in this game. The thing that stuck out to me was the two walks. We know he's got some walk issues, particularly starting mostly last year. I think that really became kind of a headline thing for him. So for the two walks in the 5 innings, I think that's a positive development. Only one of those walks came back to bite him. When he gave a free base runner, he was the one other time he was able to not let that guy get around. So I think that's huge as well. And the bullpen did a good job in this game. Josh Walker threw two scoreless. Jorge Lopez threw a scoreless inning. And we know with Brooks really being shut down for the year now, this is a chance for Josh Walker to really uh, cement himself into this bullpen. And he's in this series alone. I think he showed some strong cases to be made that he should be a part of the future of the Mets bullpen.
He's definitely has looked good. I think besides that second inning on, was it Sunday or Saturday? I think that was his only blemish so far this year. He looked tremendous. We both said that. I mean, he had an issue with walks last year, but if he's in the zone, I think with that fastball curveball combination, he's pretty nasty. So it's good to see that he's probably a little bit more comfortable and pitching in the zone a little bit more. Um, I think, by the way, right now he's handling the pressure of a new role with Brooks Raley out a little bit better than Jake Diekman because he's pretty frustrated so far in this series for a couple of times or the last week or so.
Yeah, if you're a water cooler and Jake Deegan's coming near you, you might want to stand clear. Something else that in this game, the opener of this series, that we talked about how the season started to dictate itself. Well, the series kind of dictated itself with some poor defensive plays, poor base running by the Mets. It all started in Monday night. There was obviously the ball that Nimmo booted in the left field, and then a poor throw in, let the back runner advance to second base, which is how Cleveland got the second run in that first inning. And then we had the weird play in the second inning. JD Martinez doubles. Marte hits a comebacker. JD's caught pretty far off the bag. Uh, he try to get into a rundown, and then Marte they eventually tag JD, but Marte's caught way off the first base bag. He was kind of in between if he was going to go the first and second. Uh, so he gets tagged out trying to get back to first base. So it was just kind of the beginning of some sloppy play by the Mets in this series. Um, and we've kind of seen this of late. I mean, it's a point we could potentially make at the end if we want to do an overall series recap. But I will say, for a team that with the Mets that's playing a lot of close ball games, it definitely showed in this series that any little mistake you make is going to be costly. And a team like Cleveland, while maybe it's not an overly impressive lineup, besides maybe the Jimenez, Ramirez, Naylor, this David Fry kid looks pretty good as well. Uh, but they were able to capitalize on mistakes, and if you kept giving it to them like the Mets did, you're just asking for trouble.
I think I wrote a chat to you during this series saying I think this series shows the difference between the Mets and the Guardians was defense. And we made a lot of costly errors on defense also Tuesday. I didn't watch Wednesday, so that will be all you to recap that game because I didn't see it. So yeah, and the first two games just close games where a couple of defensive plays could save some runs, and in close games you just can't do that. And the Mets are doing that too often this year. the defense have not helped, and it's something that David Stearns wanted to address. And obviously, in some players it worked, but in some players are even worse than that they were last year. So yeah, it's not a good sign. The way you see these, and I also wanted to say this at the end, but we're talking about it now anyway. So the Mets with those type of plays find ways to lose game, and good teams find ways to win, and that's what the Guardians did. Bad teams find way to lose, and that's what the Mets are doing.
Yep, it's just like we said, it's how things are dictating themselves, how the season's kind of been going, minus a little bit of a stretch in April. The sample size is uh, bigger now as we're getting to Memorial Day weekend. I think we have a pretty good idea of what this team is, and unfortunately, it's not an overly impressive ball club. Um, that's very unfortunate. But let's move to the Tuesday game. This was what we thought was going to be Adrian Hauser against Carlos Carrasco, but Carlos Carrasco was placed on the IL by Cleveland before the start of this game. So they called up a spot starter, and naturally, it just kind of seems how it goes. You know, a guy the spot starter comes up who's got they said he had like an 8 ERA in AAA Columbus for him. Obviously, he comes up and for those first couple innings, he looks pretty good. Curry, the pitcher for Cleveland, Hauser, the first couple innings looked pretty good. I thought his velocity was up in this game. Unfortunately, things kind of started to snowball a little bit in the third inning, where Cleveland puts up a three spot. There were some uh, extra base hits in that inning. Actually, three doubles, I believe. If memory serves me correctly, it all started with a hit
Mm-hmm.
by pitch as well. So that's one of those things where you give a base runner, this Cleveland team is going to take advantage of it. But the Mets did start to chip away. They put a two spot up in the fifth inning. Mark Vientos hit a home run. Vientos is someone we're definitely going to be talking about. Lindor drove in a run as well, but Cleveland got those two runs back in the bottom half. But then the Mets got those two runs back in the sixth inning, courtesy of Jeff McNeil with a two-run homer to put it back to a one-run ball game. McNeil was my player to watch in the series, and I think I might have done a pretty good job predicting that after a shaky looking first game. Uh, then we go to the bullpen. We talk about Jake Diekman. Uh, Struggled in this outing. He allowed two runs in the sixth. So and that's when the cooler started to uh, get smashed, get thrown. The Mets did make a one-run game in the eighth inning, scoring two runs, so it was 7-6. Unfortunately, in the ninth inning, the Mets weren't able to do anything against Emmanuel Clase, so the Mets lose game two of this series, 7-6. And Adrian Hauser, like we mentioned, got the start in this game. And you said in our text chat, whatever, that you think maybe the final line didn't truly dictate how this outing went for Adrian Hauser. So I'll give you a chance to explain yourself because I know a lot of people are probably screaming, "What the hell are you talking about? He allowed 6 runs in 5 innings." So explain yourself.
Well, first of all, it's that third inning hit by pitch, and was the third or the fourth? I don't remember. But it it started with the hit by pitch and then a triple, and that triple was a bouncing ball that bounced way over the head of Alonso. I see that as a pitcher, especially as a pitcher like Adrian Hauser, you want a hitter to bounce the ball on the ground, and it just took such a weird and huge hop over Alonso, who was playing a little bit in. That turned out to be a triple. So not only did you allow a hit by pitch to score, but another runner, and I think it was all with nobody out. That maybe wasn't necessarily a bad pitch by Adrian Hauser. Turns into a triple, which obviously with Hauser's lack of true strikeout pitch, has a good chance to get to eventually score. Let me say it that way, and that turned out to be with a couple of doubles. I think that third double that was a fly ball to right field, where, in my opinion, Marte misplayed it. So if you recap those three runs, could be one, could be none. If that ground ball is a ground ball as it should, it's at least one out. Depends on what Alonso would do. I think it was hit fairly hard, so it's probably going to second, maybe even turn a double play. Then you have that double, which might score a runner. Then he got another out, if I remember correctly. And then he had that fly ball that should have been caught. So um, that was an inning where I thought, and before that inning, I thought, like you mentioned, Hauser threw the ball really well. And then after that inning, he allowed 3 runs. It ballooned on him. And then later in the game, he allowed a 2-run homer to Jose Ramirez on an up fastball. And I don't mind him challenging a very good hitter there with that up fastball, but Ramirez just did well. So the line definitely, it was 6 runs right now. I think he pitched well enough to make it like three runs in that outing, and then you look a lot different to the outing than right now. But it seems, I think the last outing before he was sent to the bullpen, I also said this, so it seems like it's just not falling for Hauser, or Hauser is just, we said last week, we talked about Edwin Diaz, how confidence works. And right now, I just see Adrian Hauser, if things go wrong, isn't able to maybe put that aside and maybe get into his head, like, there we go again. And if that's the case, um, you know how it works with athletes, that's mostly not a good mental thing to have. So that's part of my reasoning, that I thought he looked better than his overall numbers. Although I would say that it's just another, it's still another bad outing for Adrian Hausen.
Also doesn't help with him for putting the pressure on himself or whatever when he's got David Peterson breathing down his neck, who's, I believe they said he's eligible to return next Wednesday or this coming Wednesday.
I think the 27th, right?
Yes,
So
so I
yeah,
believe that's Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. Um, and McGill's outing was a promising outing, like we talked about. So that's a guy who could take that rotation spot. We know Jose Buto is capable of pitching at the major league level. Obviously, Buto's issue was just the walks. But to be honest, on this pitching staff, whose problem hasn't been walks most of the year. So no, there's three guys right there who are, in my mind, ahead of the pack when it comes with Adrian Hauser. Obviously, the problem with Buto was they needed an arm. He had options, so they had to send him down. Well, maybe they didn't have to send him down; they chose to send him down. Um, but we know with the way Peterson's been pitching in his rehab assignments, 29 strikeouts, only 2 walks, something like that. And with a pitching staff that's been struggling with walks, that's you have to think if they feel Peterson's ready, they're going to put him out there. I think they were, at least in my mind, I think they were happy with what McGill gave them. Um, so that's probably a guy you're like, all right, let's give him another go around. I don't think you're sending Christian Scott back to AAA just to keep Adrian Hauser in the rotation. You could put Hauser back in the bullpen if you want to, or at this point with Memorial Day coming up, we know it's a benchmark of the season. Maybe they just write him the check and say thank you very much, and the exit's to your left. Um, Maybe that's the decision they decide to do. Who knows? They have a lot of interesting roster decisions, not just with the pitching, but obviously Hauser is a name to watch when it comes to what's going to happen the next couple of weeks when guys are coming back and getting healthy.
yeah, 100%. It's very, very interesting decision what they're gonna do. On one hand, I think, and I have mentioned this before in the podcast, I think the track record of Hauser is good enough to keep him in some capacity, maybe as the long man. out of the bullpen, a guy who can give you 2 innings or 3 innings or even four when you need him. Um, well, or be multi-inning relievers for multiple spots during the week. So if there's still a spot out there for him in that capacity, I would do that, and I would not just you know throw him away. Spot starters are always needed. So yeah, I hope that they will keep him in that capacity. On the other hand, we are getting maybe. I'm not wanting to give up right now. I think we are still in May, so but we are getting closer and closer to um, to a way of thinking where you say Hauser is not part of our future, and Peterson and McGill could be. So I think, and Buto too, would also make the case for Buto there. So
Yeah, it's something we've talked about where you know I was going to save this point for the end, but you just look at these two teams because it's the perfect example. One team is the oldest team in baseball for average age. The other one is the youngest. The Mets are the oldest. Cleveland was the youngest, and between the two, Cleveland's obviously the better team. So the Mets are, in my mind, the worst thing you could be right now, which is an older team and a sucky older team compared to Cleveland. That's a young team, and they're good, and you just know they're going to get better because they got a lot of good young guys in that system. We Manzardo didn't have maybe he showed what he could do. He had a couple doubles in this series. That's who they got for Savali last year. So we know what Cleveland can do when it comes to producing major league talent. And unfortunately for the Mets, they've been we've seen them produce good pitching prospects, but you wrote this article recently. Maybe the hitters are a little behind, which maybe is a little cause for concern. But the Mets, in my mind, right now, they're the oldest team in baseball, and it's the worst thing you could be because you're not like a good old team, you're a bad old team, and I just think that's the worst possible thing you could be.
for right now, yes, but the Mets do have a good system, so um, I'm not necessarily worried about this for next year. And I also said that in the chat. We've seen we have a lot of 1-year deals for the older guys, so they are probably trade chips, and maybe we can add some major league hitting talent at some capacity for a lot of those guys if it ends up that we aren't contending. So this year could still be a lot of fun, just not right now.
Yeah, definitely not right now. No, before we move on to the Wednesday game, going back to my point, like I told you, if guys were, let's just play the theoretical game. If it was like Acuna was playing second base every day, Gilbert was in center field every day, whatever, like the Mets had their young guys up and were learning on the job, whatever. I think the losses would be more like, all right, yeah, it doesn't. Not to say that the losses are really bothering me. I've kind of accepted the fact that this is how the season's going to go. But it would be a lot more, I guess, entertaining maybe to see these guys continue to develop rather than seeing like, okay, Starling Marte booed another ball in the outfield. Yeah, um, really rough series for Starling Marte.
you
Really
had,
rough
you had,
series. Or
you had to mention Starling Marte
well, you
here.
mentioned it too with his poor play in the outfield that
It
like
was a
cost
poor play.
Adrian
It was
Hauser some runs.
yeah.
I guess we'll just go there right now. I will say because obviously, there's been a lot of heat on the guys making a lot of money that are not performing. Obviously, Lindor is, I guess, if you want to say the headliner for that, even though we believe Lindor has had some hard luck sometimes this year. Um, Jeff McNeil, a guy who hasn't been really up to standard this year. But Starling Marte, in my mind, hasn't been that guy either, and he's making a lot more money than Jeff McNeil. Um, so when we're talking about guys who are not performing, to their standard, I think Starling Marte should be at the top of that list as well. So I'm not. maybe he is. Maybe I'm just not seeing it, but it seems like maybe he's kind of been a little bit under the radar when it comes to railing on players who are not really doing a all around great job this year. Yeah, he had those nice defensive plays against the Cubs and whatnot, but he had the home run against Cleveland as well that put the Mets back in the ball game. But just from an overall standpoint, I think Starling Marte has, except for the first couple weeks of the season, I don't think Starling Marte has been anything to write home about.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I think his routes in the outfield are getting worse and worse by the year. Um, and he's not getting younger. I saw somewhere, and I could be wrong, but I thought I saw that DJ Stewart had a better sprint speed than Starling Marte. That I have to add to that we know, and I don't mind Starling Marte maybe you know being a little bit uh, jogging on ground balls because he's an older guy and his legs are so important. That's which obviously doesn't look good on average speeds. Same with Lindor, by the way. I saw somewhere that someone said that Francisco Lindor was jogging to first base. Well, the guy is playing 160, 162 games per season. He jogs because that will keep him fresh, and that's the same for me with Marte. So I get that. Um, I want to say a point. Well, obviously, I think it's pretty obvious that Marte isn't doing his part right now. Maybe not getting as much um, of a bad, how you say that, the negative.
Bad rap.
Yes, but yeah, he isn't performing, and it is to me concerning after last year. Um, I always said a healthy Marte is a good Marte. Maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, and obviously this year, has he been as bad as he was last year? No. No, he's been better, but how much better, I guess. I mean, um,
He's,
it's
he's not a 2022 Starling Marte right now. He's in between last year and 2022 Marte. And for me, that's not necessarily enough to warrant him. We don't have better right now. I mean, you can bring up Trace Thompson or you can bring up Ben Gamel because they are having a solid year in AAA, but those guys aren't your future. If Drew Gilbert was hitting the cover of the ball in AAA, different story. But he's hurt. Jet Williams is hurt. So it's not that I say DFA Marte right now. You pay him a lot of money, and the options in AAA right now aren't better, but they are coming.
yeah, and but I would say right now though, if a right-hander is on the mound, I think you got to put DJ Stewart in the lineup. That's just my opinion. I mean, I like, even though maybe Stewart overall is not a better player than Marte. We know Marte is probably the better defensive player uh, than DJ Stewart, but I just think the at bats Stewart's going to give you are going to be a lot better. We know Stewart has a really low chase rate. I know you sent me something a couple weeks ago. Marte's baseball savant, his chase rate wasn't as bad as maybe we thought it was, but I just think right now Stewart gives you a more professional at bat. I think there's a little bit more of a threat for hitting the long ball with DJ Stewart. And then if later in the game, if you want to make the switch for defense, or if there's a left-hander they bring in and you want to put Marte in there, that's fine with me. Um, but I just think right now DJ Stewart should get some more playing time, maybe, than Starling Marte against right-handers. I know there's probably going to be some lefties in this Giants series, even though all those are kind of TBD. Um, but I,
Just all that. Yeah.
yeah, but I guess I would rather see DJ Stewart get some more playing time right now than Starling Marte.
Let me ask you this: next year, Who is more likely to be part of the Mets Major League roster? Is it DJ Stewart or is it Starling Marte?
I'd probably say Starling Marte just based on the contracts. I think
Then,
but
if that's your answer, in my opinion, then I wouldn't chalk too many at bats um, from Marte.
I guess maybe if I was running the team, we've seen the Mets DFA a guy making $20 million already. So I think
I know, I know.
and I know that's maybe a little bit of a different situation compared to this, but hopefully Gilbert gets back on the field. He starts to rake. He gets a late season call up. He shows what he can do, and then the Mets, because you're not going to be able to trade Starling Marte, even though he's got 1 year left at that salary. You're not going to find a whole lot of takers. You're going to have to eat money on that. So, um, and you'll eat money on it, but even what you get in return might not be worth what you're investing and paying Starling Marte to go away. You know, just because the track record the past couple of years. Now maybe Marte will turn it around. Who knows? But just the signs to me anyway are not there with Starling Marte. And I mean, obviously it's not my money, so it's easy to say, just cut his ass, send him out. But obviously we've seen him in baseball when guys are making a lot of money. There's kind of they're kind of locked in almost, and that was the issue I had when they gave him the 4 years. They did the 4 years because they wanted him. We both kind of said at the time that I think this is maybe a little bit too much. And to be fair, even when the Mets were kind of enamored with Marte, even back in his Pirate days, if you think about before he got traded to Arizona, there was all the rumors about him, and the Mets were calling Pittsburgh about Starling Marte. I wasn't really big on that back then, so maybe that's just no. I don't want to say I was no Marte hater, but I just never been like excited about the player, thrilled about the player compared to some other people in the within the organization or in the fan base. So maybe I'm just kind of like ready to see this chapter end, and I'm hoping we're at the tail end rather than we're still kind of in the middle of the book. So
We are over the half point at least, Andrew.
at least. So all right. Well, let's move on to the finale here. Uh, Started out pretty good for the Mets. They got out to a 3-0 lead thanks to solo home runs from Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, and hey, Harrison Bader decided to go deep in this game as well. It feels like if Bader's going deep, you're all set. Like it feels like this is going to be a win for you. And Katana was cruising through five, and unfortunately, he ran into some trouble in the sixth inning. He got 2 outs, but then a double by Freeman kept the inning alive for Cleveland. It put the tying run at the plate, which is for Andres Jimenez, and Andres Jimenez took him deep. So we had a tie ball game after six. And then the bullpen started to falter. Reed Garrett came in a tie game in the seventh and was a little bit all over the place. Uh, there was a wild pitch charged to him that advanced the runner to second base. That was the go ahead run. Maybe a ball Narvaez should have stopped if he had slid instead of trying to backhand. I'm sure this is a topic we'll get into as well. But Cleveland took the lead, and they pretty much did not look back from there. They got to Adam Ottavino as well, who didn't look very sharp. Adam Ottavino, not a big fan of iPads apparently either in the dugout. So look out if you're an iPad. Josh Walker came in to finish off the eighth inning, but there it was just too little, too late. The Mets down three going to the top of the ninth were shut down pretty easily. So the Guardians win the finale 6-3, a series sweep for Cleveland. Um, yeah, I mean we can go into Narvaez if you want because um,
Yeah,
it's
I didn't watch the game, so I didn't see that play. I have one other thing I want to mention.
okay.
That's
Before we get to this,
something that bothered me a bit about the match, and that was Harrison Bader, who
mm, I think I know
got
where you're going
a
with this. I know where you're going with this.
well, where I'm going,
Is
where
it
am I going?
is it him getting hit after McNeil hit the home run and thinking it was intentional?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And
Darling
that was
thought it was
also
intentional too on the broadcast.
no, it wasn't.
I wasn't so sure.
Definitely wasn't. even if there's a slight chance it was, um, just take it and go to first base. Harrison Bader, come on. Then I saw that on a clip from SNY. Harrison Bader got his revenge. Blah blah blah. I didn't like that at all. I saw it, and I thought, well, I mean, it happens, and um, for me, there was no reason for him to do that. Just be glad that you got on base, and because that's not a given thing for Harrison Bader at all, and just take it. Take it like it's kind of like it didn't turn out to be a big thing, but later when I was watching the game, I did watch the end, saw Olavino and Josh Walker, and Olavino hit um, Andres Jimenez after uh, hitting a home run during the game. So his reaction could have indicated that that was payback, and then you have some fuss with two teams that have nothing to do with each other, no rivalry at all, and it was ignited by Harrison Bader for nothing. Then,
There you go.
so I didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I didn't think it was intentional either, and um, think think we've seen Bader in his past. I think it's fair to say he's a little bit of a hothead. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
Um, so, but I want to get to Narvaez because I mean we were not big fans of
go
this.
ahead.
We were not. Well, I'll loop you into this as well because we're not going to just talk about the bad play yesterday. I think you should. I mean, it's what catchers do nowadays. They try to backhand rather than slide. So, I mean, maybe it's.
Was he on one?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, probably it's how they set up nowadays. But even at that, it's a spike slider. It was not a good pitch from Reed Garrett. So I'm not trying to you know, say it's
It
Reed
was
Garrett
a
was not
fastball.
wasn't liable at all for this. I mean, he definitely contributed, but at this point, late in game, you can't let that run advance. No, from a wild pitch or anything like that. So obviously a bad pitch by Reed Garrett, but not a good job by Omar Narvaez to the backhand. You got to make sure you block that ball. Um, but this is more just kind of the overall picture of Omar Narvaez. When they signed him back in December of 22, we were both not big fans of that move because at that point, James McCann was still on the roster. Eventually, they traded James McCann, eating a lot of money in that just to play Omar Narvaez. Um, and they paid it wasn't like Narvaez was coming off a great season the year before with Milwaukee. He had a dreadful season with Milwaukee, and the Mets gave him $7.5 million over 2 years. Well, I guess it was really 1 year with a player option. That was a mistake too. Player options, I don't like player options at all, especially when they're big players like Omar Narvaez. But obviously, he got hurt last year. Got off to a nice start, but then he got hurt. Came back, didn't really do a whole lot for the Mets. Um, and then going into this season, he was the backup catcher, but a very expensive backup catcher, and hasn't really done anything at all this year, defensively or at the plate. He said he 155. His OPS is 373. We've seen him struggle. Basically, other than Tomas Nido, a lot of the catchers have struggled in the run game for the Mets this year. But he's he just doesn't have a good arm. We know Alvarez has it in him. We saw it in spring training. We've seen it last year too. He's got an arm, but it's still developing and whatnot. But there's just nothing Omar Narvaez is bringing to the table right now that really warrants a roster spot, other than the fact that Francisco Alvarez is hurt. Um, and in my mind, if you're going to roster a guy who's going to hit 150 with a sub 4 OPS, you might as well just bring up Hayden Senger. Why not? I'd rather have the younger defensive, and he's probably better defensively. We hear about how great he is defensively within the organization. So, I mean, once Alvarez comes back, I think we both agree they're not going to send Nido down. Um, they're not going to cut
No,
him. Narvaez is going to be the guy to go. Um, So I'm just really hoping that Alvarez gets back as soon as possible because I'm pretty much done with Omar Narvaez, and I have a feeling you feel the same way. But maybe not as you won't be as harsh as I was.
We have a new segment on the show starting this week. It's Andrew's List. Uh, Andrew's List with
The A list.
Met he hates. Starting with Omar Narvaez and Starling Marte. Who will it be next week? Oh, Harrison Bader can be on the list after his remarks that he wanted more playing time. So a fun little list, getting more and more out there, Andrew and
It
Mr.
could grow.
Fallon.
Who knows? But you see,
Probably.
you make fun of me about Narvaez, but you've said the same thing. So don't make it seem like you're some kind of saint.
I am a saint, but yeah, no, I mean, it's obvious. He, yeah, you can all go all the way back to when the Mets acquired Omar Narvaez, when they had Tomas Nido on a 2-year deal. I think at that point Tomas Nido came off. Was he a finalist in Gold Gloves the year before,
I think he
or
might have
something
been,
like that?
yeah, because he basically took over the starting role late in the season. I think he
Yeah,
was a finalist for Gold Glove. I think you might be right.
and well, they brought in Narvaez, and we both said, I mean, obviously James McCann's tenure as a Met wasn't good, but we didn't necessarily see that much of an upgrade in Omar Narvaez. And now you paid James McCann, I think it's like 16 or something million, maybe even more, to play somewhere else. And you get Omar Narvaez for 2 years, and that money, is added to your payroll. So eventually you paid Omar Narvaez probably like 24 million to play for us. If you could see it that way, and I did see it that way, I think it was unnecessary. Uh, you pay McCann anyways, and McCann was at least a guy who I liked defensively. So even if you have Nido and McCann out there, you have a good defensive duo. Right now, you don't have that. Nido solid, by the way, but Narvaez not. And yeah, just absolutely didn't work out. And I'm not that type of guy who goes back to moves that they make. Uh, Also, if I think it's a good move and it turns out differently, I would say, yeah, but it could still be a good move at that time. But for this moment, I would say that we were both 100% correct that this was a terrible way of handling catchers, and it's the second time. Now I'm getting a little bit aggravated, by the way, because we also had that um, Travis d'Arnaud situation where they traded Clevin Plawecki. You had two solid catchers. They weren't great, but you had two solid catchers. You decided to go with Travis d'Arnaud, and you give him like 2 to 3 weeks after coming back from Tommy John surgery, and then you just throw him away. Uh, so it's now the second time that they totally mess up the catcher situation. And I mean, the Mets are they want to be they should be very, very, very happy that they developed a young catcher who is really good for the near for the near future in Francisco Alvarez, because if we didn't have Francisco Alvarez, we would be stuck with these two. And I, by the way, also agree with your take this time about Hayden Senger, who has been in the Mets organization for a long time, has been a tremendous defender. I think at some point last year or the year before, he was organizational defender of the year. So uh, the Mets really like his defense. He's putting up okay numbers in AAA. I think his OPS is like 725, which obviously isn't great. But yeah, look at the OPS. Omar Narvaez is sporting right now. Get a younger guy and just get done with it.
Yeah, it's also good to just let the hate flow through you. Just let it go. Just let it out. It's awesome.
Yeah, you're getting me going.
Yeah.
That's not how I
Usually
want
it's
to
you that gets
operate.
me going.
Yeah, but you are easy to get going.
That's true.
So
I'm very easy to. Doesn't take a whole lot for me to get an opinion on something per se. Um, but but we agree. Like if you're this is the numbers you're going to put up defensively or offensively, is Hayden Sanger going to be any worse? He's a lot younger. He's a lot cheaper. You've kept him around this long for a reason. Might as
and
well
he's
just
probably a lot better defensively. So
yeah.
give the guy a chance. We
He could
know right now what Omar Narvaez brings,
yeah.
and I don't see it getting better. If they believe that Omar Narvaez is getting better, I just don't buy it.
No.
I think they know it too because they are playing Tomas Nido
Yeah.
a lot more, so they
Two out of three
know it.
games.
Yes,
Yeah.
they know it.
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. Well, talking about Hayden Sanger, he's still stuck in AAA Syracuse, and I think this is a good segue to Corne's minor league quote unquote minute.
Should we make
A jingle?
Hayden Seng? Yeah, well, that could be too.
Oh,
No, a Hayden Senger to MLB hashtag or something like that.
hashtag Sanger to the bigs.
Exactly. That's a good one. You should add that in the when you share the podcast on Twitter. I
Oh,
think
maybe. I'm sure Hayden Sanger would appreciate it.
you should. but
All right. Well, I know
back to
there
the
was a lot going on this week.
yes. As always, I mean, it's always fun to follow the Mets minor league. Starting again with the Florida Complex League. Jorge De Leon had a strong outing, 3 innings, allowing one unearned run with 5 Ks, 1.13 ERA over 8 innings with 16 strikeouts. Um, saw his motion. Something that did concern me a bit is that it's a lot of arms and no legs, which reminded me a bit of maybe you have a memory of this guy, but Marcos Molina, guy who used to be a pretty highly touted pitching prospect for us and got hurt eventually. Another guy who used his arms in not necessarily his legs in his motion. I think he tried to add more legs, but uh, he just fell off after that. So I hope it's not will not end up the same way as Marcos Molina, but it's a little bit of a concern watching him pitch. But still, the numbers are good. Jeremy Rodriguez is just amazing. What a pickup he could be. Hit his first home run of the year on Tuesday. A.G. Ewing also homered his second of the young season. And Jose Chirinos, a 19-year-old from Venezuela, had a strong outing. 4 innings, allowing just one hit and one unearned run with 2 strikeouts. He has a 2.79 ERA so far. And I think I was going to let you comment on the Marcus Molina.
No, I didn't have anything to say on Molina. I was going to talk about Jeremy Rodriguez, and like you talked about it right there. What a steal that could be for getting just for Tommy Pham. Like it wasn't like the Mets traded David Robertson, who was having a really good year last year. Obviously, the Mets did get some good prospects in Vargas and Ronald Hernandez. And I don't want to steal your thunder here, but I did believe I saw Ronald Hernandez was the Florida State League Player of the Week. I'm sure that's something that will be mentioned here as well. But no, we question. Well, I didn't question. Some question the direction the Mets went in last trade deadline, with looking more at the extremely young, athletic guys, and people were kind of hoping for more the Drew Gilbert, Ronald Acuna's, where they were a lot closer to the major league level. But no, Jeremy Rodriguez could absolutely turn out to be a steal for old man Tommy Pham.
He's just 17-year-old and he is hitting everywhere he has played. 17-year-old already at stateside and just performing is pretty darn impressive to me. And um, yeah, and these with the deadline coming up would be very interesting to see what they will get. You have David Stearns right now, who I trust getting good talent out of some of these deals, and maybe we'll see a lot of these type of additions. So don't judge before you see is what I would say, because a lot of people didn't like the Mets getting Jeremy Rodriguez um, in the Tommy Pham trade, um, but it shows that they know a lot more than us fans, because so far, I mean, we obviously don't know how Jeremy Rodriguez is panning out, but so far, with his age and with how he has performed in now a league that obviously has older guys than he, it's done. It's really really impressive. So moving on with St. Lucie, yes, Ronald Hernandez was Player of the Week, but I mentioned his week obviously on Monday because he was Player of the Week for
Naturally,
last
naturally,
week.
naturally.
So I did mention him there. He was great there, but there are other names on the St. Lucie list right now. We had Christopher Gomez, who came from the Florida Complex League, had a difficult start to his St. Lucie career after his promotion. He did bounce back with 2 1/3 scoreless innings, striking out 3. Jesus Baez, time for a call up, by the way. He should be in Brooklyn with all the guys who are getting aggressively called up. I think he should be the next one. OPS up to 821 in a pretty difficult hitters league. Billy Fennes, talking about promotions, he just was promoted to St. Lucie from the Florida Complex League. He had his St. Lucie debut yesterday, going 2 for 5 with a home run and a triple. He drove in 2. And Boston Barrow and there he is, Ronald Hernandez, both tripled in a 2-hit day on Wednesday. So they are still. Ronald Hernandez had a pretty decent series, not obviously not as good as his last week. That was, yeah, you he wasn't able to repeat that, but good to see him getting some hits there. And a triple is pretty fast. I also see some stolen bases with Ronald Hernandez in minor leagues too. So a nice athletic catcher. Brooklyn, yet another debut for a minor league team. This time it was Cade Morris, who went 6 innings of 1 run ball, allowing just 4 hits, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. It's good to see him moving up. Jonathan was tremendous in his longest start of the season. He went 6 2/3 innings of 1 run ball, striking out 8, including DJ LeMahieu. He struck out on a nice looking fastball. Utility infielder Wilfredo Lara hit his first home run of the season. He's having a difficult start to the year, so hopefully he picks it up after this, after the home run. Brooklyn has been a terrible, terrible ballpark for power this year so far. So that's one thing to note when you're talking about hitting performances in the with Brooklyn Cyclones. Binghamton, Kevin Parada, finally we can say something good after a bad first month with a 596 OPS. He has a 713 OPS in May, still not great, but he does have 4 home runs since May the 10th. So it's good to see him getting going. Ryan Clifford, talking about the lack of power in Brooklyn, he already hit his first home run in Binghamton. So that's maybe the main reason why they brought him up, because his power was lacking, but he had a crazy walk rate in Brooklyn. So maybe in Binghamton he gets some more, pitches to hit, and the power will come a little bit more. Nolan McLean made his Double-A debut, another debut in the Mets organization with 4 innings of 3-run ball. He allowed 7 hits. Two of them went out of the ballpark. He didn't walk a batter, struck out 5. Brandon Sprout is still doing his thing. He went 7 for the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. He walked just 1, which is always great to see Brandon Sprout not walking guys. Struck out 9. He did allow 3 solo shots for 3 runs, but it was solo shots. So if you allow your home runs, let it be solo shots. So that's still another very good outing for Brandon Sprout. Sprout. Paul Gervais, the tall righty we saw in spring training, made his return after an IL stint with a perfect ninth with 2 strikeouts for the save. Good to see him back. Moving on to Syracuse, my man Jose Butto should have been pitched on Tuesday, the same day as Adrian Hauser, so they should have flip-flopped, I guess. He made his Syracuse return, went 6 scoreless innings on just 2 hits, no walks, with 7 strikeouts. I added in my notes, please come back, Jose, because yeah, just I like him, and I hate seeing him pitching this. I like seeing him pitching this well as Syracuse, but I hate it at the same way because I just want to see him pitch in the major leagues. Um, Max Kranick, we talked about him, got DFA'd, was unclaimed, still in the Mets organization. He has been coming out of the bullpen lately. Been doing pretty well in the bullpen, so maybe that's the future for Max Kranick. He pitched 2 perfect innings with 2 strikeouts. Luke Ritter, another guy who I mentioned last week as maybe an option for a utility role for the Mets. He keeps on hitting. Hit another home run on Tuesday, driving in 3, and a good thing to see, I think, maybe together with Kevin Parada, Luis Angel and Cunha went 4 for 9 with 3 RBIs in the 2 games since the last podcast, Mets Minor League Minutes.
Oh, there it is. So much to cram in there, but you got it all in there.
Yes.
And I'm definitely on the please come back Jose Buto train with you as well. So you're not
Good.
alone in that.
Oh, I hope that I'm not alone because, yeah, he just deserves being there. And I mentioned I still like Adrian Hauser to be in the bullpen and to have a role in some capacity. Maybe that works out, but not over the 3 guys you mentioned.
Yep. Yep. I definitely agree. Well, the Mets have today off, which is Thursday. They were recording. They'll be back in New York for a Memorial Day weekend series with the San Francisco Giants. The Giants are TBD for their starting pitchers all 3 days as of right now when we're recording this. But the Mets put out who they're planning on starting. Be Christian Scott Friday, Luis Severino Saturday, and Sean Manaea on Sunday. So with Corne's lack of production lately with the series predictions where he liked my Jeff McNeil prediction for the series player. Obviously, McNeil had 3 hits, 2 home runs, a double. They're all extra base hits for Jeff McNeil. So I wasn't too far off with that.
I think you did really well with that prediction. I definitely give that prediction a thumbs up for you.
Well, there we
And I
go.
like it's more that I like my idea so much that another great idea that I brought into this podcast that I said I want to do that too.
Yeah. So now we're going to not predict series, but we're going to predict the player of the series. So
Yes.
since it's your idea, I will let you go first and who you think is going to have a
Oh,
good series for the Mets against the San Francisco Giants.
Omar Narvaez. No,
No,
just
you're
kidding.
such a liar. You are such a liar. Yeah, the one game he plays.
Yeah. Or I would laugh my beep off if he now plays on Sunday and it goes 4 for 4 or something like that. And
Probably will.
it would be hilarious, and it would work. Well, it wouldn't work for Hayden Senger, Hayden to the bigs or Senger to the bigs,
Sanger to the
whatever.
bigs.
Senger to the bigs hashtag. Um, all right, let me think about it real quick. We don't
Or do
know
you
the
want me to go
pitches.
first? I have a guy in mind.
All right, go for it.
I'm going to go with Brandon Nimmo. I mean, that's not like a big, oh, wow, no, but you have to figure that there's going to be at least a tough lefty in this series, whether it's Blake Snow coming off the IL or Kyle Harrison um, for the Giants. There's going to be at least a lefty in here that's going to present some challenges to Nimmo. Obviously, Nimmo's been better of late against lefties. Uh, overall the past couple years. And now him dropping to the 3 spot, he was a little lackluster in this Cleveland series. So I think maybe return back to Citi Field. I think Brandon Nimmo is going to have a very good series for the New York Mets.
Who were the match starters again? Manaya,
Scott
Severino.
Friday night, Severino Saturday, Benaya Sunday.
All right. Um,
But I have a feeling you're going to go a starter route here.
yeah, I was considering it at least. Uh, I'm gonna go with yeah. I think Christian Scott is a little bit too obvious for some reason. So I'm gonna go with another good outing against his old friends, Sean Manaya on Sunday. Having the maybe we could make it different because I'm also always more a little bit pitching generated. That you pick a hitter and I pick the best starting pitcher of the pitching probables.
Oh, could do that
Maybe
too.
that's the fun idea.
Could do that.
So I would say Sean Manaya is
Shamanaya.
having a best
I like the pick.
outing this week.
I like the pick. I like the pick. Obviously, Shamanaya had that start against the Giants back in San Francisco and couldn't quite qualify for the win. So maybe this time he'll have a little bit of a fire under his you know what to get a good solid outing in there and grab a W
It's
against his
been,
former employer.
it's been pitching better as well. So
Mhm. Yep, definitely. I would agree with that. All right. I think we're going to wrap things up here. So, Corne, thanks as always. Good, like I said, good pick with the Shamanaya. Some good points today with the minor leaguers and railing on Omar Narvaez. And we thank you for taking the time as always to join us on the show. You're kind of the
yeah,
state.
no,
You're I say taking the time to join us. You're like a staple of the show now. You're generating a lot of buzz.
well, someone has to do it. No, no, that's not a nice thing to say by me. Your rants are also getting some attention, Andrew. So you have to keep that up too. Yes, I think minor leagues just for me. I think it works with making it a little bit different than other podcasts out there. So that's probably the main reason. And we do both like watching minor leagues when we have the chance. It's not like oh we're just you know stating stating facts or
Right,
box scores. Sometimes we actually watch.
right. Who's going to drive 4 hours to Binghamton? Not a lot of people, except me, because I got no life. But that's okay.
You are going to the game. You almost
I am going to the Met game Friday night,
yeah.
so
And for
I'll.
everybody who is listening, I will say it again. Andrew loves attention. If
Yeah.
you see him out there, just say hi. Buy him a beer. He loves beer. So I
Don't
think we should
don't bother me while
should.
I'm eating my Shake Shack
No, that's the only time you can bother Andrew if he has
when he's
a
eating
food
Shake
in
Shack.
his or food, general food in his hands. Don't talk to him.
Yeah, there you
All
go.
the other moments you see Andrew, unfortunately, yeah, blah blah blah. You know what I'm gonna say.
Know what you're gonna say.
You you aren't. You know, we can't see you when you air the podcast because that would work better. He's a little bit too shy for that. But
Yeah,
if you know Andrew and you do see him or you hear him shout bad things against Omar Narvaez and you recognize his voice, go and say hi to him. He loves interacting
I
with.
love people talking to me while the game's going on. I just love that
Exactly. You love interaction
because it's more
during the
because
game.
games going to games is more about the social aspect rather than actually watching the game. That's why people spend a lot of
100%.
money so they can have, just go and talk.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
Man, I don't
I
know.
always I always think when I sit next to you watching a game that this dude should shut up. Starting conversations in spring training with people in front of him. Uh, yeah, just I think, oh well. I mean, do you need to do that? I just want to watch the game, and then he's starting a conversation with an older lady in front of him,
Uh,
um, which went on for like at least 10 minutes. It was a nice old lady, though.
I don't even remember this, but I highly doubt this ever happened. So that's probably why I don't remember it.
You do remember
I
in
do
the
not.
well when we were at the Baltimore Orioles game. I would say that the woman ended up not talking to you, but to your mom, who's a lot more social than you are, because maybe people didn't necessarily weren't aware that this was sarcasm. But
Yep. There might be
but
some that didn't pick up on that. Believe it or not,
exactly. So
the human race is not the most intelligent at times.
at times it's not the most intelligent, but shout out to Kelly, great woman. But yes, she was kind enough to let that nice old lady go with a nice conversation instead of a grumpy guy who started the conversation and then tried to stop it as soon as possible after.
Yeah, sounds about right. Sounds about right. All right. Well, enough making fun of me because we don't have to do it on here. We don't need us. We don't need to publish this part, but we will because. All right, this is going to do it for episode number 15 of the Queen's Connection, a production of Pattern Sports Creative. We are on Twitter, Facebook. Just search the Queen's Connection. We'll probably pop right up. We post clips there. We also post clips on the YouTube page. We also post a full episode on YouTube. We know people listen on YouTube as well as on Spotify. So make sure you follow us there. Give us a like, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you. We'll figure it out because now my schedule's going to get complicated with the Lake Monster season starting. So, but we will chat before the start of the Dodgers series. So stay tuned for that, everyone, and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.